Welcome and thank you for tuning in. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis. On the program today, we're going to be talking about artistic flair. That is, someone who has a passion for being able to take something that he loves to do, turn it into a lifestyle, and share it with others. Sculpting is his forte, and he's joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program to talk just about that very thing. I'd like to welcome to the program our guest, Mr. DJ Garrity. DJ, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Bet. Now, tell us about how you got started in sculpting and what your passion is about this.
Well, I started off with a love of carving, and it kind of developed into a stone carving forte. I started off in New England, and eventually wound up at Mount Rushmore as sculptor in residence. I was there for 3 years. From there, I've just kind of developed a portraiture following. I do a lot of portraits in stone. That's my area that I work.
Now, you said Mount Rushmore, so what were you doing there? Were you actually working on the founding fathers that everybody knows so much about?
No, actually, it's a public relations position at Sculptor in Residence. I maintained a working studio there, presented lectures and training sessions for the staff. It was a great opportunity to study portraiture and in a colossal scale. It was also very close to Crazy Horse, which is a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
About 12 miles from Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I was going to ask, tell us a little bit about the Crazy Horse Memorial you just mentioned. What's that all about?
Well, that's a project that was started in 1947 by a gentleman by the name of Korzak Zilakowski, who was actually from the East Coast originally. And he was asked by Chief Standing Bear, Henry Standing Bear, from the Lakota Sioux tribe to create a hero, a Native American hero, Crazy Horse. And he actually started that over 60 years ago. He died in '82. His family is continuing that sculpture right now. But to give you an idea of the scope of it, all of Mount Rushmore will fit right into the face of Crazy Horse. And this is a man riding a horse, three-dimensionally, being carved out of that mountain. Incredible. Yeah, it's unbelievable. Yeah,
fascinating stuff. What sort of took so long for something like that, I guess, to get started and, as opposed to how they had everything else in place with the Mount Rushmore carvings?
Well, Mount Rushmore was, Gutzon Borglum, who was a sculptor there, he had the advantage of the funding through the United States government. Korzak refused funding a number of times. He wanted to do it on his own or through the tribal, funding. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of money to be had. So Korzak, when he could blast, when he had the money to buy dynamite, he would blast.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't happen all that often for him. So it took a long time to actually do the work. He had 10 children while he was there. A number of them are still working on the project after his death and are bringing that forward. The blasting technology has really kind of kicked the can down the road for him. That's been developed and really brought to the forefront, cutting edge, which is making a big difference there.
Oh, fascinating stuff. Now, I understand that you work with lectures and you talk to people about this. What's that all about?
Well, right now I'm in Ireland. I've been in Ireland for since the spring. I took some time off to go. I was over in France doing some work there. I just got back, but I will be back in the States in August. I do lectures and workshops, mostly at Botanic Gardens. I'll be in Chicago, New York City, and San Francisco. I basically lecture on monumental sculpture of the American West and my own work, too, as well, which is a form of sculpture where the work basically emerges from rough blocks of stone. So I do portraits of jewels. Use the stone as a natural kind of a addition to the work. It blends in with the stone. very much like Mount Rushmore would be, where the images are coming out of the mountain, but this is a very, obviously a very small scale.
Interesting stuff. Now, I understand that you're going to be lecturing in the state of Oregon in around 2012?
I won't be there next year, no. I won't be in Oregon. The closest I'll be is San Francisco. For 2012, I'll probably be there in 2013. I'll be staying right here in Ireland. I'll be moving to the Aran Islands in the spring. I'm doing a series on Nobel laureates, which I'll be doing Samuel Beckett and John Steinbeck over on Aran Islands. And,
Samuel Beckett, really?
Yeah, and I try to work with native stone whenever possible, so I'll be working with some Irish marble. I'll be doing Sam Beckett, and then John Steinbeck. I'd like to get him in there as well. I'm getting some marble from California sent over.
Fascinating stuff. Oh, definitely. When it comes to, the passion of artistry, there are people that want to pursue this because it's something they feel that they should be doing, but sometimes, you hear the starving artist, so to speak, and you have a recession this day and age, which could make something like that seem almost impossible to pursue. What would you say to people that, really want to pursue something like this, but they kind of feel reserved about it just because of things such as a bad recession, for instance?
Well, I guess the thing I'd have to say is that the artist is basically in a perpetual recession. If you want to go down that road, it's 0.5% of the artists in the world can make a living at it, and of that 0.5%, only 10% are above the poverty line. So it's not it's a career choice that you really have to love when you set off to do this. But that said, it's rewarding, but it takes a lot of. You really have to be flexible in what you're doing, and you really have to think outside of the box. Myself, I work on commission. I do exhibits. I do lectures, workshops. I get income from book sales. So it's you really have to kind of touch all the bases just to keep yourself going.
Yeah, it sounds like you would. You've been doing this for quite a few years, as I understand.
Yes, I have.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell us about some of the other works that you have done around the country and around the world as well.
I did a few works in your area. I did Sacagawea. That was a 2,600-pound piece out of Columbia River basalt, and also I did Unsung Suu Kyi over at the Berry Botanic Garden in Portland before it closed last year. And I've done a lot of work in New England as well, mostly portraits. I do mostly private commissions for the portraits, but I do exhibits as well. I've done a number of exhibits in the Boston area with artists from Ireland and from Serbia, different exhibits there.
Now, what were some of the influences as through the years you were involved in sculpting that kind of got you, keeping on, so to speak, when things kind of felt like, now, what am I doing this in the first place for? What difference does it really make? Who were some of the people that really moved you, so to speak?
Well, I would say mostly, I think the biggest part of my inspiration came not so much from visual artists, but from writers. People that I've seen trying to, like even a guy like Sam Beckett, who had to work for so long with no recognition at all. And you see that over and over again. Even the work ethic of people that were successful, say like Ernest Hemingway, the way that he would work every day and things like that, just to keep yourself kind of motivated. But eventually it comes down to, every day you have to get up and try to do a little bit better, or try to keep it going. And as you mentioned earlier, the financial aspects of it is huge. Trying to keep afloat and to
right.
And to get that's a major thing. It all depends on your circumstances too, as far as obligations, which makes it even tougher at times. But,
now, one of the things that always fascinated me was sort of, call it a philosophy of sculpting, where basically a sculptor approaches, let's say, a piece of stone, and he already sees the realized intention of the stone, so to speak, so he just, or she removes the essentials until the truth is revealed. What's that like? That's kind of an interesting way to approach, I guess, this, being someone who's never really sculpted anything.
Yeah, I've heard that quite often, where they, the sculpture was in there, you just had to remove all the rest of the stone around it. I don't find that to be true personally. Every stone I begin, I have to get into it. I have to work it a little bit to actually feel anything, any inspiration there. So when I'm starting off with a portrait, I'll usually remove quite a bit before I actually start the portrait. And typically what I'll do is I'll work in clay first. I'll do the portrait in clay. I'll do it in plaster. Often I'll do it in bronze, and then I'll go to stone. So by the time I get there, I have that face so embedded, in my psyche, that I can really work with the stone itself. It's the stone that allows you basically to do the work, because it is so you can't put it back. Once you take that piece off, it's gone. So you have to be so careful, and the stone will really determine where you go with it. The integrity of the stone, things that you're not aware of when you start off. There could be a fracture in there, a fault. If the stone was mishandled at some point, So there's a lot of things that will sway you one way or the other, and it typically never comes out exactly as you had planned.
I can imagine. It seems like such an intimate process too. When something really comes out, I think there are a lot of times people can look and say, "Oh, that seems pretty beautiful," but they don't realize the intricacies that were involved. I remember some years ago I was watching. It was sort of a docudrama, if you will, on not Leonardo da Vinci, but Michelangelo. And, you always hear about somebody like that, but before this started, they actually had a documentary where they were showcasing some of his work, and I looked at the sort of the detail of what he would do, especially when it came to the human sculptings that he did, and I realized, boy, this guy really was genius, because the stuff seemed to just come alive. And that really, probably from your point of view, takes some doing and some craft, but it's something that probably you all strive for. It's sort of to say that what you're working with, the materials, is alive. It's just a matter of bringing the animation in a unique way where it seems that way for others.
Yeah, that's really the elusive aspect of portraiture, especially. It's trying to get that abstract quality or element in the work, such as Mount Rushmore. When you go there, you have the four presidents there, but what they really represent is, as a whole, is the abstract theory of democracy. That's what you're actually drawing from that work. So it's those kind of things. The Swiss sculptor Alberto Giacometti, he was a great Swiss artist. His thought was that, or what he stated when he sculpted the human figure, was that he wasn't so much trying to capture the figure, but rather the shadow that it cast. So it was kind of that elusive feeling, or that element that you kind of chase after, but you'll not always get. The part that kind of gives it a little spark. When you look at it, it's looking back at you. It has a feeling to it. Mm-hmm. It has an emotional impact. And to me, that's the hardest part to get. And it actually takes a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of mistakes before you can learn how to capture a little bit of that on purpose. But,
mm-hmm. Now, as you started pursuing this has been a lifetime endeavor for you, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. What were your parents talking about when you were doing something like this? Did they try sort of curving you in a different direction?
No, actually, it was at that point in time, it was different. It wasn't really something you talked about that much. I found as I got into it full time, really going, going with. It was harder with just the general public to be accepted and have the work accepted. You know, that's where it really come from. As an artist, I think your work is always, you know, a very tender spot for you. You know, when it's always out there, and it's always being kind of judged in a way. So you have that going on all the time.
Fascinating, fascinating stuff. Yeah. Now, do you find other people through the years have been influenced by you and felt motivated to pursue this as well?
I have in the last 5 or 10 years. That has been the case occasionally. You know, and it feels good when that happens, and when you see, especially when you see them starting to be successful and to go forward. You know. I did a lot of work out on the West Coast, on the coast of Oregon. I worked with some groups there, like from Bay City Arts Center. Fabulous bunch of artists there, and now they're talking about actually having a stone carving guild to establish right there. I did a number of classes there over the years, and that's rewarding to see that happen, and to you know. I think especially in this economy, to see people given another option, another opportunity. If you get a two-dimensional artist, you know, a painter who has the option now to put some work on the stand, you know, put some work on the floor as well as on the walls. So it's kind of nice.
Now, tell us about your website.
Well, I have up there. I have some work. I have some of my social art, some of the places I teach. I have quite a bit of work up there, actually. It shows where I've been and kind of where I'm going.
And your website is?
Website is djgarrity.com.
djgarrity.com. Now, there might be people out there that decide, you know, I need to pick up a hobby. You know, there's something that I just want to use to express myself. This might be a direction they want to go. How would they get started?
Well, I think the best thing to do really is to go online, go to a place like Dick Blick or Complete Sculptor, New York City, and buy an inexpensive set of tools. You're talking less than $100. Go to a local quarry wherever you live. Doesn't really matter. And get a stone and just start carving, pick it up and go for it. Do a little bit of studying on portraiture. That's kind of where I began. I began with an artist from County Cork, Ireland. He was in the Berkshires of Western Mass. His name was Ted Fagan. He did a lot of work in Europe as a portrait artist, working in clay. And so I studied with him. But there's a lot of online opportunities, videos, YouTube. You can pick up a lot of information without actually, you know, spending a lot of money for classes or expensive tools. But just to get a feel for it and just allow yourself a little time with the stone, you know, to pick it up.
So would you say clay would be a good way to get started because it's just, I guess, a little softer than stone, or how would one go about it?
Yeah, clay it's an excellent way to start, especially for features of the face. If you're trying to do a portrait, you can work on individual, you know, features and kind of perfect them or to get a feel for them. But when you start getting into deductive sculpture, where you're taking away, you know, the material, it's a whole different mindset or process or way forward. So although the clay will give you an idea as far as doing a portrait, you do really have to pick up a hammer and chisel and start carving. A good stone is alabaster. If you can get that, it's kind of pricey depending on where you go. But I really like working with whatever stone is available locally. I've always kind of done that. I'm still doing that right here in Ireland, and it works for me. You can usually get some. When I lived in New England, I could go up to Vermont at the time, and I could go up there and with the pickup truck, and for $75, I could fill up the back of the truck with marble. You know, you can't do that anymore, but it was nice to be able to do that. And no matter where you live, you can usually get something that's carvable. Even in Oregon, even in Portland, I've carved with the Columbia River basalt, which they say you really can't do with with a hammer and chisel. But if you take your time, you can do it.
Is it pretty labor intensive, or I mean, obviously the creativity part of it sounds to me like it would be the highest in labor intense, but is it a pretty labor intensive project depending on its size?
It can be. It can be. Definitely, if you're going to be doing a large piece in basalt, or most people will use power tools for that. It's a whole different process. I always use a hammer and chisel. I enjoy that part of it. The power is. It's really expensive, the tools, and it's a lot of noise, a lot of dust.
And it's something you certainly don't do at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning if you've got neighbors close by.
Exactly, yeah.
Fascinating stuff. DJ Garrity, if you can, go ahead and give out your website again.
It's djgarrity.com.
Very good. Fascinating stuff. Thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
You bet. So we encourage you, if you want to pick up a hobby and express yourself, then perhaps sculpting is the way to go, and be sure to visit us at our website at beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. Sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you again for tuning in. This is the Beyond 50 radio program, and remember, live your day past after.